Imagine this. You just got back from an amazing shore excursion and your ship is gone and you don't have your passport. In this video, I'm breaking down passport rules for every major cruise line and talking about what happens when you do miss the ship, or whether or not a photocopy of your passport can help get you home. Stay tuned. This video can literally save your trip. Do you need a passport for your cruise? The first thing you need to ask yourself is, are you going on a closed loop cruise or an open loop cruise? Here's the difference. A closed loop cruise starts and ends in the United States. And usually you can get away with a birth certificate and a government issued ID. An open loop cruise has a different start and ending port, and a passport is almost always required. Let's talk about these individual cruise lines. Now, at the time of this video, these are the policies. Be sure though to always check every cruise you go on to see if any changes have been made. So we're going to start with Royal Caribbean and Carnival. They do allow certified birth certificates and government issued photo IDs for closed loop cruises. Norwegian and MSC recommend passports, but they do allow birth certificates for U.S. sailings. And when they say U.S. sailings, they're talking about that closed loop cruise. Disney Cruise Line, passports are required for some itineraries. Birth certificates are okay for closed loop cruises with U.S. departures. Princess, Holland America, and Celebrity. They highly recommend passports no matter what type of cruise you're on. Virgin Voyages and luxury cruises like Regent, Oceania, etc. They also typically require passports for all guests. But here's my pro tip. Even if it's not required, always bring your passport whenever you go to another country. It is your safest way back home. Let's get into some more details though. Don't get denied boarding. Even if you have a passport, it still might not be valid for your cruise. Many countries enforce the 6-month rule, which means if your passport expires within 6 months of your cruise, you might be denied boarding. So how long does your passport actually need to be valid? So most countries require at least 6 months of validity beyond your travel dates. Some destinations only require 3 months, but it depends on your itinerary. The worst part, even if the cruise lines let you board, you could still be denied entry at any given port. Okay, so let's break it down. First, let's talk about the cruise line passport expiration policies, and then we're going to talk about the countries that strictly enforce that 6-month rule. So when we're talking about Royal Caribbean, Carnival, Norwegian, MSC, Disney, they all recommend 6 months, but some closed loop U.S. sailings may allow 3. Princess, Holland America, Celebrity, Virgin, they all require that 6-month minimum, especially for all international sailings. The luxury and international cruises, again, Regent, Oceania, Viking, they also strictly enforce that 6-month rule. Let's talk about some of the countries, though, that enforce this rule. Europe, certain zones in Europe require at least 3 to 6 months beyond departure. Caribbean, Mexico, Belize, Costa Rica, for example, all of these require at least 3 months, but 6 months is the safest. Asian, South America countries like China and Brazil, they also strictly enforce a 6-month validity. What do you do if your passport is expiring soon? Renew it as soon as possible. Common sense. Standard renewals typically take 6 to 8 weeks, and expedited services can take 2 to 3 weeks. Always check with the U.S. government or your country's website to make sure that these timelines are still in play. Do you need it fast? Let's say your cruise is within 72 hours. You can visit a U.S. passport agency and they can give you your passport the same day. Don't risk it. Even if a country doesn't check, your airline may also deny you boarding. Bottom line, just check your passport and make sure you have at least that 6-month window, or you're going to risk being left at the port. Speaking of being left at the port, what happens if you do miss the ship? Let's say you went out on that excursion and you came back late. Ship is gone. Will the cruise line give you your passport? Is there a way for them to give you your passport? For most Caribbean, Alaskan, and U.S. cruises, they do not hold your passports. And what I mean by that is when you board your cruise, they don't take your passport. Or when you leave the ship, they don't take your passport and hold it with them. You must carry it on the ship yourself. You're in control of your passport the entire time. And when you debark to go on an excursion, to get off at a port, what have you, you're carrying your passport off. If this information is being helpful to you, go ahead and hit that like button or subscribe to our channel so you can keep up with all things cruising. Even share this content. If you know somebody that's getting ready to go on a cruise, go ahead and share this with them so they can make sure that they have all their documents in order before they board their ship. Will the port have a team to help you if you do get stranded? Major cruise lines will have a ship agent or a cruise port official that's going to help any stranded passengers. Some cruise lines provide emergency contact numbers. Always check when you're debarking your ship. They might have it posted somewhere, and if they do, take a picture of it. A lot of times in your daily planner, if you have a printout of one, they're going to have emergency numbers listed at the bottom of planner for days where you're actually in port. Make sure you take a picture of that too. In addition to the details for a port agent, they're going to provide you with the U.S. Embassy or consulate information. If you didn't bring it with you, once you're in this other country, you're just going to need to contact the U.S. Embassy. The next thing we're going to talk about is probably going to stir up a lot of comments or controversy, but I see it all the time on these Facebook groups, and I hear it asked all the time. Even when I'm on a cruise, I hear people in the hall talking about it, that they're just going to leave their passport in their safe, and they're going to take a photo or a digital copy of their passport with them out on their excursion. They're going to another country. If I'm from the United States of America and I'm getting off in the Dominican Republic, that's another country. If I get stuck there, a copy will not let you board an international flight to get you home. I can't stress that enough. A copy or even a digital copy of your passport is not getting you on an international flight. You're not getting home with that. However, a digital copy or a paper copy could help speed up the process. So you need to go to the U.S. Embassy and apply for an emergency temporary passport. That will help you. It's going to help you apply. It's going to help you speed that process up. But you are not going to be able to get home with just a copy if your passport is on that ship. You know, I hear people do that all the time, and it really makes me nervous. You just need to be responsible and take your passport with you. Have it with you at all times. Do I take a copy of my passport? Sometimes. I'll put a copy in my suitcase and my luggage on my carry-on pack just in case I do lose my passport. Then again, it'll help me speed up the process. Now, let's say you're stranded. What do you need to do to get out of this country if you don't have your passport? We've talked about this already. You need to go to the nearest U.S. Embassy or consulate. If you do have that digital copy or paper copy of their passport, give that to them. It's going to help them verify you faster, and they're going to issue you an emergency temporary passport. It usually takes within 24 hours. If for some reason you don't have a copy of that passport, other acceptable IDs would be your driver's license or a state ID. If you happen to carry a certified birth certificate with you, they'll take that, or even a photocopy of your ship's documents that shows your name. Again, this isn't getting you out of the country just yet. It's just going to speed up your process to help get your passport. And now that you have your emergency passport, you can board an international flight and get yourself home. Let's talk about final tips and calls to action today. Here are my don'ts. Don't leave your passport on the ship when you go ashore. Don't get off the ship if you don't know your port agent's contact information or the U.S. Embassy information for that country. Thinking the ship is going to wait for you is a big mistake because it won't. But I want you to always go ahead and carry that copy of your passport, whether it's printed or digital, just in case of an emergency. Have emergency cash and a credit card for last minute flights in case you need to book a flight. Take a picture of your cruise schedule and all of your emergency contacts. That way, if you're stranded, you have what you need to start putting the pieces in place that are going to help you get home. Side note, if you happen to get off on a private island, let's say you're on Royal Caribbean and you're visiting Coco Cay, there's nothing there. It's just Royal Caribbean's private island. You do not need your passport for that. Just be very careful, because some people call destinations private islands when they're actually not a private island. They're just part of the country that maybe that cruise ship has leased land from. In that type of a situation, take your passport. When in doubt, take your passport. So I hope this helped. And I'm really not trying to scare you. I just want you guys to be able to come home, get back on the ship without any problems whatsoever. So just bring your passport if you have your passport and you know it's not expired. I just sent a text message out to a bunch of my sons and their friends because they're getting ready to go on a cruise, and I want to make sure that they're checking all of their passports. I know they have them. We travel with them frequently, but I want to make sure that nobody's passport was going to expire. So make sure you're checking those passports, or if you do happen to check them and they're expired or they're expiring within that 6-month window, you have time to go ahead and get it renewed. So the next time you hear somebody or you see somebody post on Facebook, oh, you don't need your passport, just take a copy, go ahead and reply to them. Maybe you can help them out, or just know in the back of your head, it's not going to work if they get stranded. On that note, I'm going to leave you, and hopefully you're out on a cruise somewhere just having a wonderful time, or you're getting ready and you're packing. I hope to see you soon. Happy sailing.